Uh-oh.
In her last two fights. Good way hitting him from that way down.
Welcome to the motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. Sam Goodman's $1 million gamble in Tim Tszyu play as rising star eyes epic upset against Naoya Inoue. Sam Goodman, he is Naoya Inoue's mandatory challenger by way of the WBO. I believe it's the WBO. Sam Goodman has agreed to risk a $1 million payday against Japanese megastar Naoya Inoue and continue following the Tim Tszyu playbook, a move he insists will see him earn the biggest upset in Australian boxing history. How is he taking a page out of Tim Tszyu's playbook? Tim wanted the big fights sooner rather than later. He didn't put distance between himself and the big fights. Not sure. While he may be the mandatory challenger for the undisputed super bantamweight king, Inoue, Fox Sports Australia can reveal Goodman is rolling the dice and fighting once more in July before what he anticipates will be a world title blockbuster in December. The decision is a huge one for the Albion Park product, who has been the mandatory for Inoue for several months, and even traveled to Japan to confront the star in the ring after his most recent win inside a heavying Tokyo Dome. Should Goodman face Inoue in either Japan or Saudi Arabia, the most likely venue for the reigning champion's next two fights, he will receive $1 million purse and with a win, and even bigger rematch bounty. But the fighter who trains out of Complete Boxing on the Central Coast wants to continue with the formula that, just like his close mate Tszyu, has seen his success run in tandem with fighting regularly. Earlier this month, top-ranked CEO Bob Arum revealed to Fox Sports Australia that while Inoue and Goodman will definitely throw down, the fighter dubbed the Monster may first take another fight in September before turning around again in December. Goodman's camp is angling for the December bout and, as a result, are keen to have an Aussie fight at least one more time in July before then turning his entire focus to the division's undisputed champion. Is this a duck? I don't know that we can go that far as to call it a duck. Not yet. If this year comes and goes and Sam doesn't fight him, well then we can call it a duck. But if this is all part of a schedule, a bigger play, we'll see. The Goodman team are convinced their charge has the skills capable of upsetting the megastar who has unified both the bantamweight and super bantamweight divisions on his way to being hailed arguably the greatest fighter pound for pound on earth. Speaking on the eve of George Kambosos' most recent world title fight in Perth, Arum revealed that Inoue's next showdown could be against Irishman TJ Doheny, who has scored 3 consecutive KO wins fighting in Japan. Arum quickly added, however, that even if Doheny were to get first crack, Goodman will be fighting Inoue this year. Ironically, Goodman beat Doheny back in March of last year on the undercard of Tszyu versus Harrison, and has since won 4 straight to become the mandatory for the IBF title. Yet fighting on the undercard of Inoue's most recent bout against Luis Nery, Doheny finished Filipino Bril Bayogos within 4 rounds to have Arum confirm he is also now in the mix for a September fight with Inoue. If it is the Irishman who gets Inoue next and becomes yet another Inoue victim, Goodman will then get his chance on a proposed December event in Saudi Arabia. So it's TJ Doheny, then Sam Goodman afterwards. Seems to be the plan. What do we need to know about TJ Doheny? I mean, besides that Sam Goodman beat him already. Well, he used to be IBF champion at this weight some years ago until 2019 when he faced Daniel Roman in a unification match for what were the IBF and WBA titles. TJ, he lost that fight. He's experienced at this weight, but he's 37 years old, so perhaps he is too experienced, that if he knew he fights this guy next, he's gonna make short work of him. Then, depending on how everything breaks down there, he would fight again at the end of the year, maybe in Riyadh, and both Sam Goodman and the Irish kid, Doheny, they're great opponents. I had the opportunity to have a brief conversation with Sam this week in Tokyo, and he was very impressed with him and his demeanor. So whether he fights Inoue in September or December, I don't know, but he certainly will be fighting Inoue this year. 3 Inoue fights, 3 Inoue ring appearances in the same calendar year? I'm not complaining. So if there is a focus on this being bad optics for Sam Goodman, it's because Sam, immediately after the Luis Nery fight, he climbed into the ring and he gave Inoue an ultimatum. He said, you either fight me next or give up the belt. Seems like that was all hot air now that you're electing to have a domestic fight instead of the undisputed one, no? I mean, what's the rush? What was that sense of urgency the night of that fight and the complacency afterwards? I wouldn't call it a duck. Not just yet. If Sam ends up fighting him before the year is out, then it's not a duck, but it is an ass-kicking. Because I don't think Sam stands a chance. I think Goodman versus Inoue would play out like McDonald versus Inoue played out. Remember when Inoue first moved up to 118? He fought the very statuesque for 118 pounds, Jamie McDonald. He stopped him. I think he stops Sam Goodman. Underneath it all, I think Sam Goodman and his people, they know that. So they want to make a little bit more money before that happens. Is it the end of the world or the end of Sam Goodman if he gets beat by Inoue? No, of course not. There's no shame in losing to a fighter the caliber of Naoya Inoue. But make no mistake, Inoue stops him. He's gonna knock you out. The Luis Nery fight was Naoya Inoue's first defense of the undisputed crown. TJ Doheny would be the second. Sam Goodman would be the third. All in one calendar year. I like it. What about MJ Akhmadaliev? Former unified super bantamweight champion MJ Akhmadaliev, who fights on the matchroom side of things? Well, he doesn't appear to be part of that picture. Not right now. Not for this calendar year. As Inoue's next fight may potentially land in England, TJ Doheny, Ireland's TJ Doheny, is in keeping with such a decorum. It would be that much easier for the Irish boxing fans to come out and support TJ or come out to see Inoue. After coming off a dominant performance over Luis Nery, Japanese pound-for-pound king, undisputed champion, the monster, Naoya Inoue eyes his next bout potentially landing on the Wembley card set for September, with AJ the expected headliner. Stadium fight! With a run of stoppage wins over Luis Nery, Marlon Tapales, Stephen Fulton, and Paul Butler, Inoue is currently targeting his next big fight, and as a fan favorite of many boxing fans, may have earned a spot in front of a huge UK crowd later on this year. The Japanese boxer was presumed to face IBF mandatory challenger Sam Goodman, who we just talked about, though this is now not the case as Goodman is set to fight in July, which frees Inoue up for a proposed fight in September. That's a big show. Anthony Joshua and Inoue on the same card. Wow. Inoue really encompasses what it means to be a pound-for-pound fighter and a world champion, as he's more world-traveled than your average fighter. Your average world champion. There is nothing average about Naoya Inoue. He's fought 2 times in Las Vegas, once in California, and he's even been to the UK once before. This would be his second trip there. If he does land a spot on the card, his opponent could be any number of fighters. The most likely fight, though, is Uzbek boxer and WBA mandatory challenger Murodjon Akhmadaliev, who now sits at 12-1, with his one loss coming at the hands of Marlon Tapales, who Inoue knocked out. Was that last year? It was, for the undisputed. Another possible opponent is the Philippines' own John Riel Casimero, former WBO champion John Riel Casimero, who Inoue has stated he would like to fight. But rumor has it, John Riel Casimero may first be facing Luis Nery, a common opponent between him and Naoya Inoue. Really? Yeah, I heard that rumor earlier this week. The people over there in Japan would like to put those two guys in the ring with each other. Further accenting that the most vibrant and fertile market for a fighter campaigning anywhere in between 118 and 122, just those weight classes down there, the most vibrant market and lucrative market is the Japanese market, because here you have a Mexican fighter and a Filipino fighter, but there is interest to put them in the ring with each other in Japan. Wow. Back to Inoue, they're saying that MJ Akhmadaliev is in the running for that September show. They're saying that, and I could see that because, well, if Anthony Joshua's headlining, Anthony's with Matchroom, so is Murodjon. Turkey's paying for the show. Turkey wants Inoue on the card. He can make it happen. He can pay him the way that he wants to be paid, to leave his native Japan. You know, I don't get the sense it's gonna be MJ. If it is MJ, well, I think MJ Akhmadaliev as a fight for Inoue is a much better fight. I mean, just a much better fight than either TJ Doheny or Sam Goodman, for that matter.
MJ's an Olympian.
He can fight. He is an all-around good fighter. But if I don't get the sense it's gonna be MJ, it's because you're talking about a fight in September, then a quick turnaround in December. On that kind of schedule, you don't want to deal in too many dicey situations. A fight that might jeopardize another fight.
You think fighting MJ jeopardizes a Sam Goodman fight in December?
I think it's a much more difficult fight than a TJ Doheny fight, though make no mistake, it's still a winnable fight. That if it is MJ, I've got Inoue beating MJ.
I think Inoue beats MJ. I think he beats TJ. I think he beats Sam. So let's get it straight.
But the reason I think it would be TJ instead of MJ is because Inoue can make short work of TJ relatively quickly. I don't think that would be a hard fight for Inoue.
No, he'd kill him quick.
Quick enough that he could turn right around just a few months later and have another fight. Whereas if it were MJ, granted I think Inoue wins and I think he knocks out MJ, I think he'd have to work for it more. Which is less than ideal when you're trying to pack in 3 fights into 1 calendar year.
You know, you go in there, you knock out TJ in 1, maybe 2 rounds, maybe 3, then you turn right around, you do the same thing to Sam Goodman in December.
This could be a very big show, very big endeavor, because you're talking about Inoue and Anthony Joshua versus the winner of this weekend's fight between Philippe Hrgovic and Daniel Dubois, all on the same show, not to mention whoever else is on the undercard. Just in keeping with the theme of all things heavyweight in this weekend's action, Wilder rues past inactivity and becomes a gym rat ahead of the Zhang showdown.
The span of time in between what was the Robert Helenius fight and the Joseph Parker fight, the amount of time in between there, that was time that Wilder was inactive, and that didn't help.
Inactivity had plagued Wilder before his latest defeat to Joseph Parker. During an interview with Fight Hype TV, Wilder admitted that the inactivity had affected his performance, ultimately preventing Wilder from pulling the trigger to detonate his trademark right hand. I could say a lot of things, but I don't want to make excuses because even when you're truthful about certain things, people say it's excuses, Wilder told Fight Hub TV. One of the things that went wrong was the inactivity.
Said that didn't help.
I was out for 2 years. I didn't even notice I was out that long because of certain things that I was doing. I just couldn't pull the trigger when it was time to. So a different time, a different moment.
He was out for 2 years in between the Helenius and the Parker fight.
No, it wasn't 2 years in between those 2 fights. It's more like a year and 2 months. But inactivity, in a manner of speaking, has plagued Wilder for a number of reasons because he's been averaging 1 fight a year for about 3 or 4 years now. 1 fight in 2020, 1 in 2021, 1 more in 2022, then just 1 in 2023.
That was the Parker fight.
After the loss to Parker, Wilder was visibly frustrated and admitted that he needed to consider his future. However, returning to the gym shortly after his defeat in December has reignited the fire. I became a gym rat again. And then I found the love back. I found the fire back. I put more fuel to my fire, and I'm reignited now. Wilder continued to add on to his journey of rediscovering his love of the sport. Against Zhang, Wilder is willing to play the long game and not go out of his way to seek a quick one-punch knockout while remaining respectful of the threat his rival possesses.
No mention of the ayahuasca.
It was said that embarking on that spiritual journey, ayahuasca, which involves ingesting psychedelic mushrooms, may have affected Wilder's psyche and thereby affected his fighting spirit, the fire in his belly. That ayahuasca may have put it out.
How?
Because what ayahuasca is for, what it's said to do, it's supposed to bring you some kind of catharsis to an internal conflict.
Reach a conclusion. Come to terms with something.
Wilder was said to have embarked on that spiritual journey, and doing so, it may have affected his performance and his fighting spirit, his ability to fight. Wilder said, I like that Zhang brings power, and he's got a nice right hook and different things like that. He looks very confident in what he does inside the ring, and I think it's going to bring an exciting fight come Saturday night, said Wilder regarding his encounter with Zhang on June 1st. I don't want people to think I'm just looking for one punch. I want to go in, I want to give a great fight, I want to come in, set him up with jabs, hooks, and then big bang and knock Zhang out.
He said if he wins, he would like to fight Tyson Fury. He would like to fight Alexander Usyk. If he wins, people are going to want him to fight Anthony Joshua.
If Wilder wins, a lot of doors open. If Wilder wins. but can he do it? Or is this just the last gasp of an aging fighter, a former champion, who's trying to put on a brave face in what is his last hurrah? Because you know what Wilder also said?
What?
He said if he loses, that's it. He's done.
It's over.
Retirement will be highly considered. He would be coming off of consecutive losses if he loses this Saturday.
Yeah.
Lost to Parker, a loss to Zhang.
Yeah.
So in between the Helenius fight and a Parker fight, he lost about a year and 2 months. In between there was some effort to put him in the ring with Andy Ruiz. This is back when Deontay and Andy were both with the PBC and relying on them to do the show. Needless to say, it didn't happen, which gave me the impression that Deontay was going to sit out all of last year, that he wasn't in the gym, wasn't doing anything, up until the Saudis came to him with that proposal that he should fight a former champion like himself and Joseph Parker late last year. And you have to remember that that was impromptu.
It took people by surprise that Deontay Wilder was leaving the island. He was set to box on a non-PBC show, which begged the question, if you had that kind of autonomy to leave the PBC and go box somewhere else, then why didn't you do it sooner? Because if you had, you wouldn't have lost most of last year.
Consider that when Joseph Parker lost to Joe Joyce by way of knockout, it didn't take him long to get back in the ring. He fought in a few smaller shows, domestic ones, against domestic level guys to gain some momentum and get back in the winner's bracket, build himself back up. He fought something like 4 times in a course of 12 months.
And that was coming off a loss.
He decided to be more busy, be more active, whereas Wilder, coming off a win, a knockout win over Robert Helenius, he sat out for a year and 2 months.
You're saying he kind of did it to himself.
Kind of. That, granted, the PBC couldn't make the Ruiz fight happen, but if Wilder really wanted to fight, if he really wanted to get back out there, he would have, even if it meant going somewhere else, because eventually he did. Eventually, he ended up in Saudi.
But by then he had lost too much time.
Now, he's coming off a lopsided loss to Joseph Parker, and he's about to fight Zhang, Zhang, an Olympian.
Eddie Hearn has got more faith in Wilder in this situation than I do. Eddie Hearn's got so much faith in this guy, he made him the captain of the team.
He's team captain for Matchroom against Queensberry this Saturday, but I just don't got that kind of faith in this guy. I mean, I see an avenue of opportunity for the victory because he's facing a bigger target than Joseph Parker, an older fighter than Joseph Parker,
A guy who doesn't throw as many punches in a round as Joseph Parker.
and a southpaw. Southpaw's weakness is the straight right hand, and the straight right hand just so happens to be Wilder's money punch. So I see a way that he can win, but I don't know if I believe it. I don't got that kind of faith in this guy.
Could just be putting on a brave face.
And you're thinking to yourself, well, if the fire and the spirit has left Wilder for the sport, then what the hell is he still hanging around for? Why is he still fighting? Well, they're paying him a fortune to keep fighting. But if he loses this weekend, that's it. It's over.
And he might.
Boxing is full of surprises, often dubbed the theater of the unexpected. Could Wilder pull this off this weekend? There's a chance. I just don't like his chances.
I thought he was going to beat Joseph Parker late last year. And look what happened.
You know, I said it was going to be difficult. I figured this guy's going to be more difficult for Wilder than most guys that Wilder fought. But I at least thought that Wilder would eventually find his right hand. He never did.
So I don't have a whole lot of faith that he's going to be able to find it this weekend.